Carrie was sure this was no joke. Despite his exile to Goatville, murder followed me here, Carrie would later recall. As he continued examining the body, Carrie spotted something else. A small ink stamp on a piece of wet brown wrapping paper stuck to the man's back, which read, Kugler and Wallen's Hardware, 277 Bowery. Carrie guessed that the saw had been purchased there. So he took the 3rd Avenue elevated train down to the corner of Bowery and Houston, near the central headquarters station at 300 Mulberry Street, where he had begun his detective career under Byrnes. The Bowery was the seediest part of town, filled with concert saloons, brothels, dime museums, gambling dens, vaudeville houses, shooting galleries, and pawn shops. Low-rise tenements and flop houses also lined the muddy, garbage-strewn streets where a melange of impoverished immigrants dwelt, Germans and Irish who had arrived in droves in earlier decades, as well as Chinese and, increasingly, Italians and Jews. Packs of neglected and homeless children, many of them once and future pickpockets and thieves, ran wild through the streets. They shared the crowded spaces with drunks who lay along the curb and doorways next to empty beer kegs. At 295 Bowery, just across the street from Kugler and Wallen's, was the most sordid dive in New York, McGurk's Saloon, a combination dance hall and whorehouse frequented by thieves and lowlives. 2 years later, McGurk's would become known as Suicide Hall after a series of prostitutes jumped from the saloon's 5th-floor windows or imbibed carbolic acid to end their lives. The waiters at McGurk's drugged patrons to steal from them, and the bouncer, an ex-prize fighter nicknamed Eat 'em Up Jack McManus, was considered the toughest brawler in New York. He got his nickname when, after confronting someone whose conduct he disapproved of, he criticized the offender with his teeth. His knife-scarred face gave him a caveman look, made worse by a missing ear, chewed off in a fight. At the hardware store, Carrie found sheets of brown paper used for packaging, the same as the kind that covered the torso. He then tracked down a Bowery neighborhood fabric supplier who recognized the manufacturer of the red oilcloth pattern, A.F. Buchanan and Sons, pattern number Diamond B3220. It had been distributed to 50-some stores in the city, each of which now had to be canvassed. Assisted by tabloid newspaper reporters who were eagerly pursuing the same leads, Carrie soon ascertained that a stout German midwife named Augusta Knack had bought the oilcloth from a dry goods shop in the Long Island City neighborhood of Queens a few days before the body parts had started showing up. Mrs. Knack, estranged from her husband, lived in a Hell's Kitchen boarding house at 34th Street and 9th Avenue and occasionally sublet part of her flat to others. One of her roomers, a German immigrant named William Guldensuppe, had been missing from his job as a Turkish bath masseur since the day before the murder. Co-workers confirmed he had a tattoo of a girl in the spot carved out of the victim's chest, and they identified the reassembled body at the morgue as that of Guldensuppe. It turned out that Guldensuppe had been Augusta Knack's lover until she jilted him in favor of a former roomer, a barber named Martin Thorne. The rivals had tangled on several occasions. Guldensuppe had twice beaten Thorne senseless, after which the barber moved out. It appeared that Thorne had a motive for revenge. The police machine began to grind, Carrie recalled later. The keeper of a duck farm in Woodside, Queens, not far from the Long Island City shop where the oilcloth was purchased, reported that, for some days, the water in his duck pond had taken on a peculiar reddish substance that had made his ducks sick. Detectives traced the blood to a sewer line connected to a bathtub in a vacant cottage nearby. Neighbors confirmed that a heavy-set woman, accompanied by a man in a dark suit,